Jake Morrison stepped off the transport shuttle and looked around the massive space station. The Galactic Defense Academy was bigger than any city he had ever seen. Metal walls stretched up so high he could not see the ceiling. Lights blinked everywhere like stars in the night sky. Other cadets walked past him. Most of them were not human. Jake saw creatures with scales, others with fur, and some that looked like they were made of light itself. He picked up his bag and followed the signs to the dormitory section. His room was small but clean. Jake put his clothes in the metal locker and sat on the hard bed. Through the window, he could see space and distant stars. It was beautiful but also strange. He missed the smell of pine trees and the sound of birds singing. A knock on the door made him turn around. Jake opened it and saw 4 aliens standing in the hallway. They all wore the same gray uniform that he had on. "You are Jake Morrison the human," said the tallest one. It had green scales and yellow eyes like a snake. "I am HFY. We're your squad mates." Jake nodded and shook the creature's clawed hand. "Nice to meet you." The second alien stepped forward. It looked like a giant insect with 4 arms and black armor covering its body. "I am Velnara," it said in a buzzing voice. "I come from the Chithri worlds." Next was a huge, furry creature that reminded Jake of a bear. It was at least 8 feet tall and had thick brown fur covering its entire body. "Thakmu," it said in a deep voice that sounded like rocks falling. The last alien was the strangest. It looked almost like a person made of silver light. Jake could see through parts of his body. "I am Kiratel," it said without moving its mouth. The voice came from inside Jake's head. "I am Void-born." "Cool," Jake said. "So we're all in the same squad?" "Yes," HFY said. "We will train together for the next 2 years. Tomorrow we begin classes." They walked together to the dining hall. Jake had never seen so many different aliens in one place. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had multiple heads. A few looked like walking trees with leaves for hair. The food was strange, too. Jake got something that looked like meat, but tasted like vegetables. Velnara ate what appeared to be live insects. Thakmu had a bowl of something that smelled like rotten fish, but made him smile. "What do humans eat?" Kiratel asked. "Pretty much everything," Jake said. "Meat, plants, fish. We're not picky. Everything." Thakmu looked surprised. "Even dangerous animals?" Jake laughed. "Especially dangerous animals. My dad once caught a shark, and we ate it for dinner." The aliens looked at each other. HFY's eyes widened. "Sharks are water predators, yes? You hunt them?" "Sometimes," Jake said. "They're pretty good eating if you cook them right." After dinner, they went to the common room to study. Jake looked at his schedule. Combat training, tactical analysis, survival skills, and something called predator studies were all listed. "What's predator studies?" he asked. Velnara made a clicking sound with her mandibles. "We learn about the most dangerous hunters from different worlds. It helps us understand combat and survival. The apex predators," HFY added. "Every world has creatures that sit at the top of the food chain. They are perfect killers." Jake nodded. "Makes sense. Know your enemy and all that. Have you studied Earth's predators?" Thakmu asked. "Not really studied them," Jake said. "But I've seen most of them. My family goes camping a lot. We run into bears, mountain lions, wolves. Normal stuff." The aliens stared at him. Kiratel's silver form flickered. "You encounter apex predators regularly?" "I guess," Jake said. "It's not a big deal. You just make noise when you hike, so you don't surprise them. Most animals don't want to mess with humans anyway." "Most animals," Velnar repeated slowly. "What about the ones that do?" Jake shrugged. "Then you deal with it. My Uncle Pete killed a bear once with just a knife. It was trying to get into his cabin." The common room got very quiet. Other alien cadets nearby stopped talking and looked at Jake. "Your uncle killed an apex predator with a blade?" HFY asked. "Yeah, but it was a small bear, only about 6 feet tall." The aliens exchanged looks again. Jake wondered if he had said something wrong. The next morning, Jake woke up early and went to the gym. He found it empty except for some machines he did not recognize. He started doing push-ups and sit-ups on the floor. Other cadets began arriving. Most of them used the strange machines or lifted weights that floated in the air. Jake kept doing his simple exercises. "Why do you not use equipment?" asked a voice behind him. Jake turned and saw a new alien. This one had blue skin and tentacles for hair. "I don't know how to use it," he said. "This works fine, but the machines are more efficient." The alien said, "They can increase your strength by 30%. "That's nice," Jake said, continuing his push-ups. "But I'm not trying to get 30% stronger. I'm trying to stay in shape." The alien looked confused. "But stronger is better, yes?" Jake stood up and wiped sweat from his forehead. "Not always. Sometimes you need to be fast. Sometimes you need to be quiet. Sometimes you just need to keep going when everything hurts. This is human training philosophy?" The alien asked. "I guess so," Jake said. "We call it being ready for anything." After breakfast, Jake and his squad went to their first class. The instructor was a massive saurian with old scars covering his scales. He introduced himself as Commander Hexlor. "In this class, you will learn about predators," the commander said. "Not just any hunters, but the apex species, the creatures that kill everything else and fear nothing." He looked around the room at all the different aliens. His eyes stopped on Jake for a moment. "Each of you comes from a world with its own deadly hunters. You will share these creatures with the class. You will learn their methods, their strengths, their weaknesses." Commander Hexlor's yellow eyes glowed. "By the end of this course, you will understand what it means to be prey, and perhaps what it takes to become a predator yourself." Jake leaned back in his chair. This was going to be interesting. Ake had been taking notes in his notebook. He looked up and shrugged. "It's pretty cool," he said. "Reminds me of mountain lions back home." The classroom went silent. Every alien head turned to stare at Jake. "Mountain lions?" Commander Hexlor asked. "Yeah, they're big cats. About half the size of your shadow stalker, but way more patient. They can follow you for miles without making a sound. Sometimes they wait for days to make a kill." Jake flipped through his notebook. "The phasing thing is new, but the hunting style is basically the same. Ambush predator. Waits for the perfect moment." Zekai's mouth hung open. "You have creatures like this on Earth?" "Mountain lions aren't quite as big," Jake said, "but they're probably better at hiding. You never see them coming. People walk right past them without knowing they're there. How do humans survive with such predators?" Velnara asked. Jake thought about it. "We don't really worry about them much. They usually avoid people. But if you're hiking in mountain lion country, you make noise and carry a big stick." "A stick," Commander Hexlor repeated slowly. "Or bear spray. That works pretty good too." Thakmu leaned forward. "What is bear spray?" "Pepper spray, but stronger. It's made for bears, but it works on mountain lions too." Jake made a spraying motion with his hand. "You just spray in their face and they run away." The aliens looked at each other with confusion. Commander Hexlor studied Jake carefully. "On your world, do warriors hunt these mountain lions as a rite of passage?" the commander asked. Jake laughed. "Not really. Some people hunt them for sport, but you need a license. The government limits how many you can kill." "Sport hunting." The commander said the words like they tasted strange. "Yeah, my neighbor Jim got one last year. He was pretty excited about it. Made steaks out of it." "Your neighbor killed an apex predator and ate it," Kiratel said. The telepathic alien's voice sounded amazed. "I mean, it's not that weird," Jake said. "People hunt deer, elk, bears. Mountain lion is supposed to taste like pork." Commander Hexlor walked over to Jake's desk. The large saurian studied the human cadet with his yellow eyes. "You said the mountain lions are less creative with the killing part," the commander said. "What did you mean?" Jake pointed at his notes. "Your shadow stalker has a phasing ability, which is pretty smart. But mountain lions just use basic ambush tactics. They're really good at it, but it's simpler." "Simpler," the commander repeated. "Yeah, they just hide and wait. No special powers needed. Just patience and really good reflexes." The commander nodded slowly. "I see. And humans deal with these creatures regularly." Well, not regularly, Jake said. But if you spend time in the mountains, you might run into one. It's just part of being outdoors. Commander Hexlor returned to the front of the classroom. He looked at the other cadets, then back at Jake. Class dismissed, he said. Tomorrow we will hear from Cadet Velnara about the predators of the Chithari worlds. As they left the classroom, Jake's squad mates surrounded him. Is it true? Zexhai asked. Your world really has creatures like shadow stalkers? Kind of. Jake said, I mean, they can't turn invisible, but they're really good at not being seen. Thakmu shook his massive head. And humans just live with this? Jake nodded. Sure. You learn to be careful and pay attention to your surroundings. Most of the time it's fine. Most of the time, Velnara clicked her mandibles. What about the rest of the time? Jake grinned. Well, that's when things get interesting. The next day, Velnara stood at the front of the classroom. Her 4 arms moved nervously as she prepared the hologram system. Her black armor reflected the lights, making her look like a living shadow. My homeworld is called Hive Prime, she said in her buzzing voice. It is a world of crystal caves and metal forests. Everything is sharp there. Everything cuts. Commander Hexlor sat in the back, watching. Jake noticed a Saurian was paying special attention to how each student reacted to the presentations. The hologram activated and showed a world that looked like it was made of broken glass. Tall crystal spires reached into a dark sky. Metal trees with razor-sharp leaves filled the valleys between the spires. This is a hive slasher, Velnara said. The creature that appeared in the hologram made several cadets gasp. It looked like a spider made of living crystal, but it was huge. Jake estimated it was about the size of a small car. Its legs ended in blades that looked sharper than any sword. Hive slashers hunt in packs of 12, Velnara explained. They can cut through solid steel with their limbs. They communicate through sounds below the range of most species' hearing. The hologram showed a pack of the crystal spiders moving through the metal forest. They made no sound that Jake could hear, but they moved together like they were following a plan. Watch how they coordinate, Velnara said. The pack approached a fortified outpost. It was built like a military base with thick walls and guard towers. Jake could see alien soldiers on the walls carrying energy weapons. The hive slashers spread out around the base. They did not attack immediately. Instead, they began making their subsonic calls. The soldiers on the walls started acting strange. Some dropped their weapons and held their heads. Others began walking in circles. A few started screaming and would not stop. The subsonic frequency drives most species insane, Velnara said. It interferes with brain function. Jake watched as the soldiers became completely helpless. They stumbled around like they were drunk or sick. Some fell off the walls. Others just stood there shaking. Then the hive slashers attacked. They moved like a single organism. Each spider had a specific target. Their crystal blades cut through the metal walls like they were made of paper. Sparks flew as they sliced through power lines and support beams. The attack was over in less than 5 minutes. The outpost fell apart in perfectly cut sections. The soldiers never had a chance to fight back. 12 hive slashers can destroy a military base, Velnara said. They leave nothing alive. The hologram showed the aftermath. The base was cut into neat pieces like someone had used a giant saw. The hive slashers had disappeared back into the crystal caves. Many of the alien cadets looked disturbed. Thakmu's fur was standing up again. Kiritel's silver form flickered like a broken light. Even some of the tougher-looking aliens seemed uncomfortable. On my world, entire cities have been lost to hive slasher packs, Velnara continued. There is no defense against them. You can only hide and hope they do not find you. A cadet with blue skin raised his hand. Have your people ever successfully fought them? Velnara's mandibles clicked sadly. We have tried. Armies with the best weapons and armor. The slashers always win. What about the subsonic attacks? Asked another cadet. Can you block the sound? We have tried sound dampeners and protective gear, Velnara said. Nothing works. The frequency goes through any material. Commander Hexlor stood up. The hive slashers represent perfect coordination an overwhelming force. What are your thoughts? The discussions began immediately. Cadets talk about how terrifying it would be to face creatures that could drive you insane before killing you. Others mention the hopelessness of fighting something that could cut through any defense. Then Commander Hexlor looked at Jake. Human Morrison? Jake had been taking notes again. He looked up from his notebook. They're pretty organized, he said. Good teamwork. The classroom got quiet. Velnara's four eyes stared at Jake. Pretty organized? She asked. Yeah, they work together really well. Reminds me of wolf packs back home. Wolf packs, Commander Hexlor said. Jake nodded. Wolves hunt in groups too. They surround their prey and attack from different angles. Very coordinated, just like your slashers. Zexhai leaned forward. Do these wolves also drive their prey insane with sound? Not exactly, Jake said, but they do use howling to confuse and scare their targets. It works pretty well on deer and elk. And how do humans deal with wolf packs? Velnara asked. Jake shrugged. Depends on the situation. If you're camping, you keep your food locked up and make sure they know you're there. Most wolves avoid humans. Most wolves, Thakmu repeated. Yeah, sometimes you get a pack that's too aggressive. Then you have to deal with them. How? Commander Hexlor asked. Jake thought about it. My Uncle Pete had a problem with wolves going after his cattle. He and some neighbors tracked them down and shot them. The aliens stared at him. Velnara's mandibles clicked rapidly. Your uncle hunted a pack of coordinated predators? She asked. Well, yeah, they were killing his cows. He couldn't just let that happen. But the coordination, Velnara said. The pack tactics. That's what made it challenging, Jake said. Uncle Pete had to think like they did. Set up ambushes, use decoys. It took him a few weeks, but he got them all. Commander Hexlor walked over to Jake's desk. Your uncle used pack tactics against the pack. Sure. Fight fire with fire, you know? He got together with the other ranchers, and they worked as a team too. And this was successful? Velnara asked. Jake nodded. Yep. No more dead cows. A cadet with tentacles for hair raised his hand. But what about the fear? The psychological warfare? What about it? Jake asked. The wolves howling. Did it not affect your uncle? Jake laughed. Oh, it definitely got his attention. That's how he knew where they were. Made tracking them a lot easier. The aliens looked at each other with confusion. You used their psychological weapon as a tracking method, Commander Hexlor said slowly. I guess so, Jake said. Loud noises tell you where something is. Basic hunting stuff. Velnara moved closer to Jake's desk. Her four arms gestured as she talked. But the hive slasher subsonic calls would drive you insane. Maybe, Jake said. Humans are pretty adaptable. We might figure out a way to deal with it. How? She asked. Jake looked at his notes again. Well, you said it's subsonic, right? Below normal hearing range. Yes. So it's basically really low-frequency sound waves. You could probably cancel them out with the right equipment. Like noise-canceling headphones, but for really low sounds. The classroom went completely silent. Commander Hexlor and Velnara stared at Jake. Noise-canceling headphones, Velnara repeated. Yeah, they use opposite sound waves to cancel out unwanted noise. Basic physics. If you can identify the exact frequency of the slasher calls, you could build something to block them. Velnara's four eyes blinked in sequence. We never thought of that. Really? It seems pretty obvious, Jake said. I mean, once you saw the sound problem, they're just big spiders with sharp legs. Dangerous, but not impossible to fight. Commander Hexlor returned to the front of the classroom. He looked at all the cadets, but his gaze kept returning to Jake. Class dismissed, he said. Tomorrow, Cadet Thakmu will present the apex predators of his world. As they left the room, Velnara walked beside Jake. Your species thinks differently than ours, she said. How so? Jake asked. You see problems where we see impossible situations. You see solutions where we see only fear. Jake considered this. Maybe we just have more practice dealing with things that want to kill us. More practice, Velnara repeated. Yes, perhaps that is it. Behind them, Thakmu was talking to Zexhai in low voices. "Did you hear what he said about the sound waves?" Thakmu whispered. "I heard," Zexhai replied. "The human mind works strangely." "Tomorrow I must show them the void maws," Thakmu said. "I wonder what he will think of those." "I am beginning to suspect," Zexhai said, "that we will find out." Thakmu stood nervously at the front of the classroom. His massive furry hands shook slightly as he set up the hologram. Being 8 feet tall and covered in thick brown fur, he was an intimidating sight. But today he looked scared. "My home world is Ursa's Major," he said in his deep, rumbling voice. "It is a cold world with long winters and short summers. Most creatures there hibernate for survival." Jake leaned back in his chair and got comfortable. He was curious to see what could make a creature like Thakmu nervous. The hologram showed a frozen planet covered in ice and snow. Mountains reached up into a gray sky. Asteroid fields floated nearby in space, looking like scattered rocks around the world. "This is a void maw," Thakmu said quietly. The creature that appeared made Jake sit up straighter. It was enormous, easily the size of a small building, maybe bigger. Its body was covered in crystalline plates that looked harder than diamond. It had 6 massive legs and a mouth full of teeth the size of sword blades. "Void maws hibernate in asteroid fields," Thakmu explained. "They sleep for decades at a time, but when they wake up, they must feed." The hologram showed one of the creatures floating motionless between asteroids. It looked like just another rock until you saw the teeth. "They can survive in the vacuum of space," Thakmu continued. "They eat both organic matter and metal. Starships, space stations, entire moons. Nothing is too big for them to consume." A cadet with purple skin raised her hand. "How often do they wake up?" "Every 30 to 50 years, Thakmu said. "We never know exactly when. They just appear and begin hunting." The hologram changed to show a space scene. Jake could see several spaceships traveling together in formation. They looked like a merchant convoy or maybe military patrol. Then something huge moved between the asteroids. The void maw was fully awake now. Its crystalline hide reflected the light from a nearby star. Each of its legs was bigger than the largest spaceship in the convoy. "Watch," Thakmu said. The creature roared. The sound traveled through space somehow, hitting the ships like a physical force. Jake could see the smaller vessels' hulls cracking from the sound alone. The ships tried to run. They fired their engines and attempted to escape. But the void maw was faster than it looked. It reached out with one massive leg and grabbed a ship. The vessel's metal hull crumpled like paper in the creature's grip. Then the void maw opened its mouth and swallowed the ship whole. The other ships fired their weapons at the creature. Energy beams and missiles hit its crystalline hide and bounced off harmlessly. The void maw did not seem to notice the attacks. One by one, it caught the fleeing ships. Each one was crushed and eaten. The entire convoy was destroyed in less than 10 minutes. "They are nearly indestructible," Thakmu said. "Weapons cannot penetrate their hide. They are too big to avoid and too fast to outrun." The hologram showed the aftermath. Pieces of broken ships floated in space. The void maw had already moved on to look for more prey. Many of the alien cadets looked sick. Some were making worried sounds. A few had covered their eyes during the attack. "My people live in constant fear of the void maws," Thakmu said. "When one awakens, entire star systems must evacuate. There is no other choice." Commander Hexlor nodded grimly. "The void maws represent unstoppable force and inevitable destruction. They cannot be reasoned with or avoided." "Have your people ever killed one?" asked a cadet with scales like Zexhai. Thakmu shook his massive head. "Never. A few times we have managed to drive one away by making enough noise and confusion that it went to hunt somewhere else. But kill one? Impossible." "What about when they are hibernating?" another cadet asked. "We have tried attacking them while they sleep," Thakmu said. "They do not wake up, but they also take no damage. Their hide is too strong." Jake had been taking notes and drawing pictures in his notebook. Commander Hexlor noticed this and walked over. Kiratel floated at the front of the classroom. Her silver, translucent form shimmered like liquid light. She did not have a mouth, but her telepathic voice filled everyone's minds when she spoke. "My people come from the void depths," she said. "It is a place between dimensions where thought as power and reality is flexible." Jake noticed that Commander Hexlor looked more serious than usual. Even the battle-scarred Saurian seemed uncomfortable with what was coming. The hologram activated and showed something that hurt to look at directly. Space twisted and bent in impossible ways. Colors that had no name swirled through areas where stars should have been. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "This is a mind hunter," Kiratel said. The creature that appeared was unlike anything Jake had seen before. It looked like a jellyfish made of dark energy, but it existed in several dimensions at once. Parts of it were visible, while other parts seemed to exist only in thought. "Mind hunters feed on consciousness itself," Kiratel explained. "They do not eat flesh or drink blood. They consume minds, thoughts, memories, dreams." The hologram showed a void-born city floating in the twisted space. The buildings were made of crystallized thought and looked like frozen music. Thousands of Kiratel's people moved through the streets like silver ghosts. Then the mind hunter arrived. "Watch!" Kiratel said, though her telepathic voice sounded sad. The creature approached the city slowly. It did not attack physically. Instead, Jake could see waves of something flowing out from it, like ripples in water. The void born in the city began acting strangely. Some stopped moving completely. Others started walking in circles. A few began screaming, without making any sound. "The mind hunter creates psychic echoes," Kiratel explained. "It enters your thoughts and feeds on them. Once it touches your mind, you cannot escape." More void-born were affected. They fell to their knees or collapsed entirely. The silver light in their bodies began to dim. "It does not kill quickly," Kiratel continued. "It drains your consciousness slowly, savoring each memory as it consumes your mind." The city that had been full of life just minutes before became a place of empty shells. The void-born were still alive, but their eyes were blank. They stared at nothing and did not respond when others tried to help them. In the end, only bodies remain, Kiratel said. "The minds are gone completely. Eaten." The mind hunter moved through the city like a dark cloud. Everywhere it went, more void-born fell victim to its psychic attack. Within an hour, the entire population was reduced to mindless husks. Many of the alien cadets looked disturbed. Several were holding their heads like they had headaches. Even strong aliens like Thakmu seemed affected by just watching a hologram. "The psychic echoes from the recording are causing you discomfort," Kiratel explained. "This is just a shadow of what the real creature can do." A cadet with blue tentacles raised his hand shakily. "How do you fight something that attacks your mind directly?" "You do not," Kiratel said. "There is no defense against a mind hunter. Once it notices you, your consciousness belongs to it." "What about mental shields or psychic protection?" asked another cadet. Kiratel's form flickered sadly. "My people have the strongest mental abilities in the galaxy. We created barriers, shields, thought locks. None of them worked." "Has anyone ever escaped a mind hunter?" Velnara asked. "A few," Kiratel said, "but they were never the same. Parts of their minds were missing. Memories, personality, emotions. They became hollow versions of themselves." Commander Hexlor stood up and walked to the front. "The mind hunters represent the ultimate predator. They do not hunt your body. They hunt your very soul." Jake had been unusually quiet during the presentation. He was still taking notes, but he also looked more interested than he had during the previous lessons. "What fascinates you about this creature, Human Morrison?" Commander Hexlor asked. Jake looked up from his notebook. "It's definitely different from the others," he said. "More like a psychological predator than a physical one." "Psychological predator," Kiratel repeated. "Yeah, it attacks your mind instead of your body. We have things like that on Earth, too." The classroom went dead silent. Even Commander Hexlor stopped moving. "You have creatures that feed on consciousness?" Kiratel asked. "Not exactly," Jake said, "but we have predators that use psychological warfare. They attack your mind to make you easier to kill." "Such as?" Commander Hexlor asked carefully. Jake flipped through his notes. Serial killers are probably the closest example. They don't just want to kill you. They want to control you, break your mind, make you afraid. The alien cadets exchange worried looks. These serial killers, HFY said slowly, they are apex predators on your world? Not apex predators exactly, Jake said. They're usually just humans who went wrong, but they use similar tactics to your mind hunter. How so? Kiratel asked. Jake thought about how to explain it. They study their victims, learn their fears and weaknesses. Then they use psychological manipulation to control them. And how do humans deal with these serial killers? Thakmu asked. We hunt them, Jake said simply. The alien stared at him. Hunt them, Commander Hexler repeated. Yeah, we have special investigators who track them down. They study the killer's methods, figure out their patterns, and catch them. But they attack the mind, Belnara said. How can you defend against that? Jake shrugged. Training mostly. The investigators learn to recognize manipulation techniques. They study psychology so they can think like the killers without becoming like them. You fight psychological predators by learning to think like them? Kiratel asked. Pretty much. Know your enemy, right? If you understand how someone's mind works, you can predict what they'll do next. Commander Hexler leaned forward. And this is successful? Usually, Jake said. Sometimes it takes a while, but we almost always catch them eventually. How? Thakmu asked. Jake grinned. Same way you catch any predator. You figure out what they want and use it as bait. Bait? Kiratel's telepathic voice sounded amazed. Yeah. Serial killers usually have specific types of victims they prefer. So you put someone who fits that type in the right place at the right time and wait for them to show up. You use yourselves as bait for psychological predators, Commander Hexler said slowly. Well, trained volunteers, Jake corrected. People who know what they're getting into. A cadet with green skin raised her hand. But what about the mental attacks? The psychological warfare? That's what the training is for, Jake said. You learn to recognize when someone is trying to manipulate you. Once you know the tricks, they don't work as well. Kiratel moved closer to Jake's desk. Her silver form was brighter than usual. You believe humans could resist a mind-hunter's psychic attacks? She asked. Jake considered this. Maybe not resist completely, but we might be able to fight back. Human minds are pretty stubborn when we want to be. Stubborn, she repeated. Yeah, we don't like being told what to do, even by our own thoughts sometimes. Jake looked at his notes again. Plus, if these mindhunters are really like serial killers, they probably have patterns and weaknesses. Everything that hunts has vulnerabilities. What kind of vulnerabilities? Commander Hexler asked. Well, they focus on one victim at a time, right? So they might be vulnerable to multiple targets. Or maybe they have trouble with minds that work differently than they expect. Jake tapped his pen against his notebook. The main thing is not a panic. Panic makes you easy to control. Stay calm, think clearly, and look for opportunities to fight back. Fight back against a creature that can consume your consciousness, Velnara said. Why not? Jake asked. Everything has weaknesses. Even something that powerful has to have limits. Commander Hexler walked around the classroom, studying each cadet's reaction. Class dismissed, he finally said. Tomorrow, we will hear from our human cadet about Earth's predators. As they left the room, Jake's squad mates surrounded him again. You really think humans could fight a mind hunter? HFY asked. Maybe, Jake said. We're pretty good at fighting things that seem impossible to beat. Like what? Thakmu asked. Jake thought about it. Well, we used to think diseases were supernatural punishments from angry gods. Now we cure them with medicine. We thought flying was impossible until we figure out how birds do it. But those are not psychological predators, Kiratel pointed out. No, but the principle is the same, Jake said. Understand the problem. Find a weakness. Develop a solution. And if there is no weakness, she asked. Jake grinned. Then you make one. As they walked down the corridor, Commander Hexler watched them go. He was beginning to understand something important about humans. They did not see impossible problems. They saw unsolved puzzles, and they seemed to enjoy solving them. Jake stood at the front of the classroom, setting up the hologram system. His hands were steady, unlike his alien classmates had been during their presentations. Commander Hexlor watched from the back with great interest. "So, Earth," Jake said casually, "it's a pretty normal planet, I guess. Lots of water, decent weather, only one moon." The hologram showed Earth from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, and green and brown continents. It looked peaceful and welcoming compared to the harsh worlds the other cadets had shown. "Looks safe," commented a cadet with tentacles. "Yeah, it's not too bad," Jake said, "but it does have some interesting wildlife." The first creature Jake showed was a great white shark. The hologram displayed a massive fish with rows of razor-sharp teeth swimming through dark water. "This is a great white shark," Jake said. "They're about 20 feet long and weigh around 5,000 pounds. They hunt by surprise attacks from below." The hologram showed the shark attacking a seal. It moved with incredible speed, launching itself completely out of the water with its prey in its mouth. Several alien cadets shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The raw power and savagery of the attack was impressive. "Sharks have been around for over 400 million years," Jake continued. "They're basically perfect killing machines that haven't needed to evolve much. And humans share the oceans with these creatures?" Velnara asked. "Sure," Jake said. "People swim, surf dive. Shark attacks are pretty rare, though they usually don't bother with humans." "Usually," Zexai repeated. "Well, sometimes they mistake a surfer for a seal, but that doesn't happen very often." Jake switched to the next animal. A massive crocodile appeared in the hologram. Its jaws clamped around what looked like a small deer. "Saltwater crocodiles," Jake said, "up to 23 feet long and 3,000 pounds. They have the strongest bite force of any animal on Earth." The crocodile performed what Jake called a death roll, spinning underwater until its prey stopped moving. "They're ambush predators, too," Jake explained. "They wait at the water's edge for animals to come drink, then drag them underwater." "Do humans avoid areas with these crocodiles?" Thakmu asked. "Some do," Jake said, "but people still fish, swim, and boat in crocodile territory. You just have to be careful." More alien cadets were looking nervous now. Commander Hexlor noticed their reactions and made notes. "Next up, Kodiak bears," Jake said. The creature that appeared made Thakmu sit up straighter. It was enormous, easily 10 feet tall, when standing on its back legs. Its claws were longer than Jake's fingers. "Kodiak bears are the largest land predators on Earth," Jake said. "They can weigh up to 1,500 pounds and run 30 miles per hour. The hologram showed a Kodiak bear catching salmon in a river. Its movements were surprisingly graceful for such a huge animal. "They're actually pretty smart, too," Jake added. "They can solve problems, remember locations, and use tools." "Tools?" Commander Hexlor asked. "Yeah, they use rocks to scratch themselves and sticks to dig for food. Some bears even use logs as back scratchers." The alien cadets were no longer looking just nervous. They were starting to look genuinely frightened. Jake showed them Siberian tigers next. The massive cats moved through snow-covered forests like orange and black shadows. "Siberian tigers," Jake said. "They're solitary hunters that can take down prey twice their size. Their night vision is 6 times better than humans." The hologram showed a tiger stalking through tall grass. It moved with perfect silence despite weighing over 600 pounds. "They're also really good swimmers and climbers," Jake added. "Pretty much the perfect land predator." By now, several alien cadets were whispering among themselves. Jake could hear words like impossible and how do they survive? "But here's my favorite part," Jake said with a grin. The hologram changed to show 2 massive brown bears in a river. But they weren't hunting or fighting. They were playing. The bears wrestled with each other, splashing in the water and rolling around like giant puppies. They were clearly enjoying themselves. "This is what grizzly bears do for fun," Jake said. "They play, fight, explore, and basically goof around when they're not hunting or eating." The classroom went completely silent. Every alien stared at the hologram of the playing bears. "For fun," Velnar repeated slowly. Yeah, bears are pretty social animals when they're not competing for territory or mates. They like to play. Jake switched to another video. This one showed a bear sliding down a snowy hill on its back, then climbing back up to do it again. This one figured out how to sled. Jake said he spent all afternoon doing this. Commander Hexlor walked closer to the hologram. These are the same creatures that weigh 1,500 pounds and have claws like swords? Yep, Jake said. Same species. They're dangerous when they need to be, but most of the time they're just doing bear things. Kiratel's silver form flickered rapidly. And humans live among all of these creatures? Jake nodded. Sure, we share the planet with them. How? Thakmu asked. How is this possible? Well, it's not like they're everywhere, Jake explained. You have to go looking for most of them. But yeah, if you spend enough time outdoors, you'll probably encounter some dangerous wildlife. What do you do when that happens? A cadet asked. Depends on the animal, Jake said. With bears, you make noise so you don't surprise them. With big cats, you make yourself look bigger. With sharks, you get out of the water. And if those techniques don't work? Commander Hexlor asked. Jake shrugged. Then you fight, or run if you can. Fight, Zexai said. You fight these apex predators. Sometimes you don't have a choice, Jake said. My neighbor killed a bear that broke into his house. My cousin fought off a mountain lion with a hiking stick. The alien stared at him in amazement. Your cousin fought an apex predator with a stick? Velnara asked. Well, it wasn't a very big mountain lion, Jake said, and it was a really good stick. Commander Hexlor returned to the front of the classroom. Human Morrison, you mentioned that these encounters are relatively common? I wouldn't say common, Jake corrected, but not exactly rare either. Most people who spend time in the wilderness have at least one story about dangerous animals. One story, the commander repeated. Yeah, like my dad's shark encounter, or my uncle's thing with the wolves, or my grandfather's grizzly bear incident. Your entire family has encountered apex predators? Kiratel asked. Jake thought about it. Pretty much, yeah. It's kind of normal when you grow up in rural areas. Normal, Commander Hexlor said. Sure, you learn how to handle wildlife as a kid. It's just part of living on Earth. The commander looked around at the other cadets. They all looked shocked. Class dismissed, he said. We will continue this discussion tomorrow. As they left the classroom, Jake's squad mates surrounded him. Jake, Zexai said carefully, are all humans like you? Like me, how? Jake asked. So casual about deadly predators. Velnara explained. Jake laughed. Oh, I'm actually pretty cautious compared to some people. You should meet my cousin Danny. He wrestles alligators for fun. For fun? Thakmu repeated weakly. Yeah, it's like a sport in some parts of Earth. People pay to watch it. The alien stopped walking and stared at him. People pay to watch humans fight alligators? Kiratel asked. Sure, it's entertaining. Takes a lot of skill and courage. Courage? Commander Hexlor said from behind them. He had been following the group and listening to their conversation. Or stupidity, Jake admitted. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. The commander studied Jake for a long moment. Tomorrow, we will discuss the implications of what we have learned. All of you should think carefully about what it means to share a world with apex predators. As they walked to the dining hall, Jake noticed that other cadets were staring at him. Word was spreading about his presentation. Hey, Jake, Thakmu said quietly. When you showed us those bears playing? Yeah, that was the most terrifying thing I have ever seen. Jake looked confused. Why? They were just having fun. Exactly, Thakmu said. Creatures that powerful should not be capable of joy. It means they are not just killing machines. They're not killing machines, Jake said. They're just animals doing animal things. Yes, Thakmu said softly. That is what makes them so frightening. Jake was starting to understand that his fellow cadets saw Earth's wildlife very differently than he did. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. The next morning, Jake arrived at the classroom to find all the alien cadets already there. They sat quietly, watching him with expressions that ranged from curiosity to something that looked like fear. Commander Hexlor stood at the front with his arms crossed. His yellow eyes studied Jake as he took his seat. Yesterday's presentation has raised some questions, the commander said. Before we continue, I want to understand something better. Jake pulled out his notebook, wondering what the big deal was. Human Morrison. Commander Hexlor continued. You mentioned that your family members have encountered these apex predators. Can you tell us more about these encounters? Sure, Jake said. What do you want to know? Start with your father's shark encounter. Jake leaned back in his chair. Dad was deep-sea fishing with some friends when he was younger. They were about 20 miles offshore when a great white started following their boat. The alien cadets leaned forward, listening intently. The shark was maybe 18 feet long. Jake continued. It kept circling their boat and bumping into it. They thought it might be attracted to the fish they had caught. What did they do? Velnara asked. Well, they tried to scare it away at first. Made noise, threw things in the water, but it wouldn't leave. And then Commander Hexlor asked. Jake grinned. Then my dad's friend Bobby decided to catch it. The classroom went completely silent. Catch it, Zexai repeated slowly. Yeah, they had heavy fishing gear on board. Bobby rigged up a big hook with some bait and went fishing for shark. Your father voluntarily tried to catch an 18-foot predator? Kiratel asked. Well, Bobby did most of the work, Jake said. But yeah, they fought that shark for about 3 hours before they got it close enough to the boat. Then what happened? Fakmu asked. They took some pictures with it and let it go, Jake said. Bobby said it was the best fight he ever had. The aliens stared at him in disbelief. They released it? Commander Hexlor asked. Sure, they weren't going to eat an 18-foot shark. Too much meat and probably full of mercury. But it was a deadly predator, Velnara said. Yeah, but it was just doing shark things. It wasn't really trying to hurt anyone. Commander Hexlor walked to the hologram controls. Show us, he said. Jake looked confused. Show you what? Human fishing. Show us how humans catch these predators. Jake shrugged and set up the hologram. Soon the classroom was filled with images of humans on boats, fighting massive fish. This is sport fishing, Jake explained. People go out specifically to catch big, dangerous fish. The hologram showed a man strapped into a chair, holding a fishing rod that was bent almost in half. Something huge was fighting at the other end of the line. That's a marlin, Jake said, about 12 feet long and maybe 800 pounds. They jump out of the water and fight for hours. And humans do this for recreation? Commander Hexlor asked. Yeah, it's really popular. There are tournaments and everything. Jake showed them more footage. Humans catching massive tuna, fighting giant swordfish, battling sharks from small boats. Most people release the fish after they catch them, Jake said. It's called catch and release. You prove you can do it, then let the animal go. You fight apex predators to prove you can do it, Thakmu said slowly. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds kind of stupid, Jake admitted, but it's really exciting. Commander Hexlor changed the hologram to show land hunting scenes. What about terrestrial predators? He asked. Oh, people hunt those too, Jake said. Bear hunting is pretty popular in some areas. The footage showed humans tracking bears through forests. They carried rifles and moved carefully through the woods. Bear hunting requires a lot of skill, Jake explained. Bears are smart and have great senses. You have to be really quiet and patient. Humans actively seek out encounters with creatures like the ones you showed us yesterday. Kiratel asked. Sure, if you're into hunting. Some people prefer fishing. Others like big game hunting. Big game hunting, Commander Hexlor repeated. Jake nodded. Lions, tigers, bears, big cats. There are places you can go to hunt almost anything, including creatures that could easily kill you, Velnara said. That's what makes it challenging, Jake said. If it was easy, it wouldn't be fun. The commander turned off the hologram and faced the class. This changes everything we thought we knew about predator relationships, he said. Every species we have studied developed civilization as a defense against apex predators. He pointed to each alien student. Saurians build underground cities to hide from shadow stalkers. Chithri live in sealed hives to avoid hive slashers. Ursidae evacuate entire systems when void maws awaken. The commander's voice grew serious. But humans do not hide from their predators. They seek them out. I never thought about it that way, Jake said. Tell me about your cousin who wrestles alligators. Commander Hexlor said. Danny? Jake laughed. He's kind of crazy. He works at this place in Florida where they do alligator shows for tourists. Show us. Jake set up the hologram again. Soon they were watching humans grabbing alligators barehanded and wrestling them into submission. The alligators are usually pretty calm, Jake explained. But sometimes you get one that really wants to fight. The footage showed Danny grappling with a 12-foot alligator that was definitely not calm. The reptile thrashed and snapped while Danny held onto its jaws. Is your cousin trained for this? Commander Hexlor asked. Yeah, he learned from his dad, who learned from his dad. It's kind of family business. A family business of fighting apex predators, Zexhai said. When you say it like that, it sounds really weird, Jake said. Commander Hexlor walked around the classroom. What you have shown us suggests that humans evolved differently than other species. How so? Jake asked. Instead of avoiding apex predators, humans competed with them directly. You became predators yourselves. Jake thought about this. I guess that makes sense. Humans are pretty good hunters. Show us human hunting, the commander said. Jake hesitated. Are you sure? It might be disturbing to some people. Show us, the commander repeated. Jake set up footage of humans hunting, not the sport fishing or wrestling shows, but actual hunting. Humans with spears taking down large animals. Groups of hunters working together to bring down prey much larger than themselves. This is how humans hunted before modern weapons, Jake said. Teamwork, persistence, and tools. The footage showed humans running down animals over long distances, wearing them out through sheer endurance. Persistence hunting, Jake explained. Humans can run farther than almost any other animal. We would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. You hunted by outlasting your prey, Commander Hexlor said. Yeah. Humans are really good at long-distance running. We just keep going until the other animal gives up. The aliens watched in fascination as humans chased down animals many times their size. And this is how your species survived. Thakmu asked. For thousands of years, Jake said, we were never the biggest or strongest, but we were stubborn. Stubborn, Kiratel repeated. Yeah, we don't give up easily, even when something is bigger and stronger than us. Commander Hexlor turned to face the class. Do you understand what this means? The alien cadets looked at each other uncertainly. It means, the commander said slowly, that humans are not just another species that developed civilization for protection. He looked directly at Jake. Humans are apex predators who develop civilization as a tool for better hunting. Jake blinked. I never thought of it that way. Your cities, your technology, your space travel, Commander Hexlor continued. All of it serves to make you more effective predators. That's kind of a dark way to look at it, Jake said. But accurate, the commander replied. You do not fear apex predators because you are one. The classroom fell silent as the implication sank in. The alien cadets stared at Jake with new understanding. Tomorrow, Commander Hexlor said, we will put this theory to the test. The next morning, Jake and his squad mates found themselves in a different part of the station. Instead of a classroom, they stood before a massive door marked Combat Simulation Arena. Commander Hexlor waited for them, wearing full combat gear. His scarred hide was partially covered by armor that looked like it had seen real battles. Today is your final examination, he announced. You will face holographic recreations of the apex predators we have studied. Jake looked around at his squad mates. Zexhai was checking his weapons nervously. Velnara's mandibles clicked rapidly. Thakmu's first stood up on his neck. Even Kiritel's silver form flickered with anxiety. The simulation will last for 4 hours, Commander Hexlor continued. You must survive encounters with shadow stalkers, hive slashers, void maws, and mine hunters. All of them. Thakmu asked weakly. Not at the same time, the commander said, but you will face each species in their preferred environment. Work as a team. Use everything you have learned. The massive door opened with a hiss. Beyond it lay a chamber so large that Jake could not see the far walls. The ceiling was lost in darkness above them. Remember, Commander Hexlor said as they entered, these are holographic projections, but they are programmed with the actual behavior patterns of the real creatures. Treat them as if your lives depend on it. The door sealed behind them with a solid thud. The first environment materialized around them. They stood in a jungle with red trees and purple sky. Steam rose from swamps nearby. Shadow stalkers, Zexhai whispered. Jake pulled out his standard-issue energy weapon and looked around. The jungle was perfect for ambush predators. Too many places to hide. We need to move, Velnara said. Standing still makes us easy targets. They started walking through the jungle. Every few minutes, one of them would spot movement in the trees, but when they looked directly, nothing was there. It's watching us, Kiratel said telepathically. Where? Jake asked. Before anyone could answer, a shadow stalker materialized right next to Thokmu. The massive creature's claws were already swinging toward the Ursides' neck. Jake moved without thinking. He threw himself sideways into Thokmu, knocking the large alien out of the way. The shadow stalker's claws whistled through empty air. Spread out. Jake yelled, Don't bunch up. The shadow stalker faded back into its ghost form and disappeared. Jake could barely make out its outline as it circled them. His squad mates were firing their weapons wildly, trying to hit something they could barely see. Their energy bolts passed harmlessly through the creature's phase form. Stop shooting. Jake called out, You're wasting ammunition. How do we fight something we cannot hit? Zexhai demanded. Jake studied the creature's movement pattern. It was circling them, looking for another opening, but always became solid right before attacking. Wait for it to become real, Jake said. Then hit it hard. How do we know when it will attack? Velnara asked. Jake pointed to the ground. Look at the footprints. Even in ghost form, the shadow stalker left faint marks where its feet touched the earth. By watching the prints, they could track its movement. There, Jake said, pointing to a spot near Kiratel. It's getting ready to strike. The shadow stalker solidified and leaped. This time they were ready, for energy weapons fired simultaneously, striking the creature in midair. It crashed the ground and dissolved into light. The jungle environment faded, replaced by crystal caves and metal forests. Hive slashers, Velnara said grimly. This time they heard the subsonic calls immediately. The alien cadets grabbed their heads and staggered. Jake felt a strange buzzing in his ears, but he seemed less affected than the others. 12 crystal spiders emerged from the caves, moving in perfect coordination. The sound, Thokmu groaned. Cannot think. Jake looked around quickly. The hive slashers were surrounding them, but they were moving slowly. The subsonic attack was working on his squad mates, but it was not as effective on him. Cover your ears, he yelled, though he knew it would not help much. Jake did something that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of trying to fight all 12 creatures, he ran straight at the nearest one. The hive slasher raised its crystal blades to cut him in half. At